Shalom, everyone. I'm going to attempt today to just point out some things in the Bible, some discrepancies, not discrepancies, but some what I think is deception and the fact that it's even in the Bible. So, in some of the other videos, we discussed who Japheth was and who his descendants are today. We looked at the name Ashkenaz, which was one of his, progeny. We found out that they are the Gentiles of today. Maybe you researched the Khazars, King Bulan, and he was the actual king of the Khazars, which converted into Judaism. And that's kind of where you get the term Jewish or Jew-like, because they were trying to be like the original Jew. So when you see that or you hear that, you say Jewish, that's like greenish, bluish, blackish-ish. And if we do some research in the Bible, we'll see that the first time ish was used when Moses' wife, they were having some big fight. And because that Moses married outside of his race, but the Bible describes her as a Israelitish woman because she had married into the bloodline. Israelitish. She wasn't a Israelite. She was a Israelitish woman. Ish, as in Jewish, as in greenish, as in almost, but not quite. So we looked at Japheth, the oldest son. He's the father of the Gentiles. We looked at Ham, and he is the father of the Africans. And the Bible dictionary actually reads like this: Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born about 96 years before the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races. The dark races. Not the Negroes. I'm a Negro. But the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. So we understand that the Negro is not a Gentile nor an African. That only leaves one other thing that I can be. And that will be a Shemite. So when you look at Shemite, right, you say, well, what in the world is a Shemite? In this Bible of deception here, this Holy Bible that's been ripped to shreds for various reasons, you'll see that that's the Holy Bible and it's the NIV. Okay, so in the true nature of this Bible, if you're not trying to look for deception, and you were just reading this thing. Let's go to Genesis 10. Let's see if I can find it. Go to Genesis 10. Okay, it shows you Noah's son Japheth. See where that is there? Right there. Noah's son Japheth. Those are the Japhetic people. Japhetic people. So you go down to, and those are the true Gentiles of this world, the Japhetic people. That's their line. So then you go down in the same Bible, Hamites. You see, Hamitic people. They would be Hamitic people or Hamites. Those are the Africans. The Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and the Canaanites, not the Negroes. Our Negroes didn't just poof into existence, so we had to come from someplace. But that's not the point of this. So when you see Japhetic, you see Hamites. Then you get down to Noah's son. You get around to Noah's son, Shem. Wait, there's no Noah's sons. There's no Shemites. You see, in the true spirit of this Bible, that word should be Shemite. Right? You saw the other ones, the Japhetic people, the Hamites, and now this should be Shemites in the true belief of this Bible. But look at what they have there. Semites. A Semite. Now, the word Semite is only a couple of 100 years old. If you were running around back 2,000 years ago and you said that you were a Semite, no one would know who the heck you were. If you said that you were a Shemite, everyone would say, oh yeah, okay, he comes from the line of Shem. But this word Semite is I guess all words are in some way made up, but this is a made up word, but it's here in this Bible. It's like almost deception because this should be Shemite, not Semite. You can be a Semite and not be a Shemite. But if you're all right, I'm not even going to get into that. There are two different words. And a Shemite is the bloodline. A Semite is a group of people. Not necessarily, Shem's descendants. You can be a Semite and be you can come from any number of people, any bloodline, whatever. But you can only be a Shemite from coming from Shem's bloodline, which Shem begot Abraham down the bloodline, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So if you come from the bloodline of Shem, then you're going to work your way all the way down to where if there was Abraham, and then you're going to work your way down. Your bloodline is going to go to Isaac, and then it's going to go down to Jacob. Now we know Jacob, they were all blessed. Those were the chosen people. Those were the chosen people. Not the Ashkenaz, not the Japhetic people, not the Hamites, not the African people. One great and very well known and loved by everyone, President Obama, right? His father is an African. He is a Hamite. He is the dark race, which really doesn't have anything to do with color, but his bloodline. And as I said, he's a Hamite. And his people are the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and the Canaanites, and all those people, not the Shemites, although they look very similar. If you put a picture up between President Obama and myself, you say, hey, those guys look similar. It's all in the blood, people. It's all in the blood. So I say that to say this. Noah's son Shem is the bloodline of the chosen people, the Negro. When you look at the maps, and you can do this, you look at the maps, right where the Gold Coast was, all this, and let me say this to you, all this scholarly work has been done, people. I'm just, like I said, I'm just piecing it all together in my own way, my own time frame, but I can believe that I can still get the message out. I pray that Elohim gives us the spirit of understanding, especially what I'm putting out, gives us all the spirit of understanding so that we might be able to find our way to salvation and life. So, okay, where was I? Okay, so people would look at me and say I'm a Negro, which I am. If you look at the ancient maps of what they call Africa, and that western portion of Africa, you will see now that it's Nigeria and all those places there. The maps before that would have read very differently. There would have been in that upper tier around that horn, I guess that is, I don't know what that is. But right where Nigeria is, just west of there, you would have had the slave coast, the gold coast, the ivory coast, and all that stuff. Right in that section, in the earlier maps, that would have read Negro land. It would have been Negro land, and inside of Negro land, it would have been the kingdom of Judah. Now, we know that the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Romans, they chased the Hebrews down out of Jerusalem and Judah. Jerusalem and Judah is where the actual Hebrews come from. They were chased down into what they call the slave coast, and the Africans there sold the Hebrews into slavery, Portuguese, all this stuff. Everybody had a hand in it. But that's how the Hebrews got spread all over the world. And you see that a lot of them were shipped to the Americas. This has all been done, documented. The scholarly work is there. Just look at it. And the Bible tells us this. The Bible tells us that this would happen. It prophesies that it does. It did. And it's now going on. But from Jerusalem, Judah, the Hebrews fled persecutions from the Romans and the Assyrians by going down into West Africa, the places that they call the slave coast. You see that 90% of all slaves during the Atlantic slave trade were shipped to the Americas. That's how I got here, people. If you trace my blood line, it goes back to West Africa, where there is still maybe 40 million people with the same DNA as I have. The Igbo people. The Igbo people, when you trace their bloodline goes back to Jerusalem and Judah, which is the Middle East. Now, I have trace blood with those folks. I have actual blood with those folks, but my trace blood is all around that region. All the stands, like the Pakistans, the Gigastans, all those stands where, the kingdom of Judah would have been scattered, I have trace blood with those people. If you look at certain people that are in that region now, that are in Jerusalem by force, you will see that they don't share the trace blood with the indigenous people of that land. They do not share that. Their bloodline goes back to Europe, Poland, Germany, France, Russia, the Turkish people. They all share the same bloodline. You can't be Jew and Gentile at the same time. So if you say that you are Jew or Hebrew, your bloodline should go back to Jerusalem and Judah. If you are Gentile, the Bible teaches us that the Isle of the Gentile, it shows us where that is, and it shows us what those people are. If you trace their blood, if you do their DNA blood, you will see that it goes back to Russia. Anyone with a bloodline that goes back to Russia, Germany, France, all those places, they cannot be the original Jew. It just doesn't make sense. You can't be Jew and Gentile at the same time. We're not built that way. Biologically, your bloodline has to go one way or the other. So I hope I've not confused everyone more than they were before in my attempt to distinguish who the sons of Noah are and who the bloodlines are. So I'm just going to leave it at that. If you're Hebrew, you come from the line of Shem. If you're an African, you come from the line of Ham. If you are a Gentile, your bloodline comes from the line of Japheth. The Bible teaches us that. DNA confirms it, and the scholarly work that explains it has already been done. And in that coast, where in the west coast of Africa, by Nigeria and all those places, if you test all of those folks, they will test the same as me. And if you test them, their bloodline goes all the way back to Jerusalem and Judah. I'm going to close with that. Shalom. And I hope this message finds the Jew and the Gentile so that we might find salvation and life in the Word. Okay. James W. Moody. Thank you again.